If not, just reach out to me. Don't let that, get in your way, okay? So the new pre-session video is up, and so that's ready to go, and you'll have a worksheet to do. Actually, it'll be centered around the 4 domains, so I think you'll enjoy it. And then let's just jump into, well, does anyone have anything else? Adam, do you want to say anything ahead of time?
No, I want to just surprise myself.
Okay, well, let's go to slide 5. Let's start by talking about the pre-session video that you watched. You had some concepts, some that you've heard from, the foundations course, but the interventionist piece was perhaps new. So let's just start there. Okay, yep, got it. Okay. Can everyone see Adam's screen? Okay, I think.
I'm just going to do this mode where, it's not the fancy show mode, but this mode will be better because I've been running into some lag. So anyway, for what it's worth.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about your role as an interventionist? So let's start with that concept. We like that sort of umbrella term and process for showing how you can really apply this material, one-on-one up into organization-wide, and that your role will shift based on situation. So did that feel clear to everybody? Was there any personal application in that? Do you like the way that kind of helps you see how you'll be working with people maybe through a slightly different lens?
I really like the framework. I think it's really helpful, Adam. It's Jim. I think it works really well for any type of activity, like you say, from coaching, training, facilitating. So it's a real good anchor, I think, to in a framework for all of your work. Really liked it. Didn't really understand that Argyris stuff. Really hard to read. I had about 10 goes at reading 2 paragraphs and gave up. I bow to your wisdom on able to make sense of it.
Yeah, that's why these slides on it will help a lot. I'm just summarizing it so you can just basically get the essence of what he was saying here.
Yeah, and those phrases that are highlighted, I think that will just help you have something to refer back to. I mean, that's something, Adam and I talk about a lot. It's that, sometimes there's some ambiguity around roles. And if you can kind of come back to this anchor as you're looking at helping somebody evolve in their strength-based journey, that can be kind of almost like a way to plug back in. So, am I providing this? Can I make this a little clearer? Can I make this more of a free and informed choice? So I didn't want to, we don't need to rehash the content because you already learned it and absorbed it, but I did want to give you a chance to talk it over if you had any questions or anything like that.
I'll add.
Good, go for it.
Hi, Adam. This is Leanne.
Hey.
I'll go ahead and add what I really took away from this specific slide you're showing right now, because I liked how you said, the idea of fashion show, because as a coach, and as someone who comes in different capacities with individuals or organizations, and you're trying not to be a consultant because, you're coaching and, you're taking on that hat, to be able to articulate that, like, I have some ideas for you, I have some things for you, but you have the freedom of that choice, and that just that description of an idea fashion show for that point number 2 of the free and informed choices, but that we have some things, but we want to hear from them too. I really liked that analogy you had there. So that was one of the notes I had specifically from this. It wasn't really a question, but just a little shout out of that. I liked that visualization.
That's great. Yeah, thanks. Good. Any other observations from this? Because let me just say a few things, and then I'll if anybody wants to comment. But this idea of we're all interventionists already. You all are interventionists. You know, and let's say there's a parent that has a kid and the kid is like, or the parent needs to intervene. Well, sometimes you need to do the authority intervention, you know, and sometimes you need to do the friend intervention, right? Or the supporter intervention, or the teacher intervention. And so just in that situation alone, just thinking about what is the right intervention model for you to get the results you want. So this isn't all about like fancy consulting stuff. We're already interventionists. We're always intervening, but are we intervening well? And so that's why I think these three things are just great guides for how to intervene well. One more thing I want to say too. This one here, offering free and informed choices, this triggers someone's intrinsic motivation. There's a theory that I'm very influenced by called self-determination theory. And it's basically a theory of intrinsic motivation. What triggers people to be intrinsically motivated? And there's three things. One of them is autonomy. People are more intrinsically motivated when they have a choice rather than being forced to do something. Like think about something you enjoy doing, and then someone tells you you have to do it. It almost demotivates you a little bit.
Right.
And then the other two, just in case you're interested, the other two triggers from self-determination theory, the second one is that you feel competent at it. If you feel like you could succeed at something, you're going to be way more intrinsically motivated than if you have to do a task that you have no clue, you know, what to do, and there's all this pressure. That's a formula for procrastination, not motivation. So can I succeed at it? And can I grow in my abilities? Well, that's a StrengthsFinder aspect right there. Think about that. If that's such an important trigger of motivation, then StrengthsFinder is all about competence and doing things that you know you can succeed at, and then also taking pleasure in the progress you make. And then the third one is relatedness. So I'm motivated when I care about the people I'm doing it with, which is why, you know, people are like, oh, team building, that's just touchy-feely, mumbo jumbo. I don't know why people woo-woo, and, you know, like they use all these words that are so dismissive, and they all have to rhyme and have hyphens in them, and whatever, annoys me. But the real thing is that team building becomes a real asset because it triggers intrinsic motivation. If I'm part of a team, I'm going to do more for people than if I'm part of a group. I'm going to be more motivated. So anyway, this triggers that. You know, it triggers their autonomy and their sense of choice, and then it's their commitment, because you do not want to be committed to your clients any more than a doctor would want to be responsible for whether or not a patient takes medications. You as a consultant don't want to be responsible, you know, for you know, whether or not your client's committed to the thing that they should want to fix. Otherwise, you're going to be carrying them through the finish line, and you should charge more in that case. You know, you're not facilitating at that point. You are doing all the work. So double your rate. Does that make sense? Being an interventionist, thinking like an interventionist, the world would be a way better place if people behave this way. Way better. And it's not that hard. So, and it's worth doing. So congratulations, you're all interventionists.
Thank you.
Okay, now I want to ask for any reactions. Then we'll move on.
It's just a funny word that takes getting used to. For me.
Okay.
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Interventionist. I mean, interventionist. There we go. Interventionist.
You don't even have to say the word, you know? You don't have to put it on your business card. You don't have to tell anyone you're doing it.
Well, I will say that, you know, when I come at a crossroads of personalities and I see that there's a need for intervention, and you just do your best in the situation to stay positive, and you validate both personalities, or you validate the issue at hand, and you just say, I encourage you to do this, or I encourage you to do this, and move forward. So yeah, that's how I actually had a conversation with somebody at work this week. I felt like I was an interventionist.
Yeah, well, like,
So,
in the case of, making a suggestion is one form of intervention, but sometimes you need to do more than a suggestion. Sometimes you need to grab somebody by their collar, metaphorically speaking, or literally, and say, you need to pay attention to this. This is bad. This is problematic. This isn't going to work, and so that's another form of intervention. But the point
That's the
here
one
is,
we do to our kids, Adam. We're just wanting you to know. That's like,
yeah.
I missed the first
I
part.
know Adam doesn't have kids, so I'm
Oh,
letting him
well.
know. That's the type of interventionist we are with our children.
I have 75 teenagers right now.
Yeah, I mean, you work at a college, right?
Well, that's high school, and then I have 90 college freshmen.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
wow.
So, yeah, I know all about it. No, I'm just kidding. I know it's different. I know it's totally different than parenting. Absolutely, it is. But yeah, I mean, being an agent of reality, that language right there, like, you can't go wrong doing that.
Right. Well, and I'll say I don't use this language really outside, like with clients myself. But I think of it as a context for a role. And that's usually how I think it's a great word for that. And then if you choose to use it with clients or not, but I actually don't, because I feel like it takes a lot of explaining, and it's just more of my mindset and the application of that.
Right.
Well, I'd like to actually move on, unless, we can come back to that if we want, but I'd like to get to the alignment meter worksheet discussion. So I'll tell you that I will be doing my homework along with you all again. I did it for 2 days completely, and then kind of did some, kind of deeper dives, working around, like, what I learned again, because I think that this is something that you can't really, it doesn't get old. And as your life changes, as your situation changes, coming back to this and sort of reevaluating where your themes fit in, how your day-to-day actually aligns there. So I'd like to hear from some of you about your experience. What did you learn about yourself going through this activity? Or your themes, or just any new insights, really.
I'll have a go. I didn't do it so much on myself, although I do use it regularly. I refer back to this a lot. The thing that I've found with clients is that they find, when I give them this to try, they find it very hard to isolate individual talent themes. And there's kind of a confusion of, they're describing what's happening, but it's probably not very accurate in terms of what the generic, what do they call it? The signature definition of a talent.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a tricky thing to isolate them,
Well, and actually, Jim, that is part of the activity that we want people to see, that you can sometimes, sometimes there's one that's like, really kind of leading the show, or really, not being engaged, and it's very obvious. But most of the time, almost all of the time, it's the interaction between multiple talents. And so that is why I want, that's one of the things we talk about with people, of like, you can't really take those apart, and that's how they show up for you in your life. I have that metaphor of like, your talents operate like the fingers on your hand. You can't just remove a finger and experience it over there. They're working together all the time.
That's really weird. Can you model it for us, Felinda? Like, show us, like, using your hands?
I'm gonna have to learn some kind of weird trick, like, I don't even know.
Oh yeah, the thing with the thumb.
Yeah,
right?
right. but that our clients begin to see it, and that as you personally think about it, you can start to see that they just really are in almost every activity firing, and that you can also kind of harness them together to kind of push that arrow toward the thriving. So if you see like, well, I am enjoying this, but what if I did something to engage, maybe my activator a little more? Oh, this might push this activity a little bit higher for me. Or what if I shifted something that's kind of getting in the way of my restorative? And then that kind of removes that roadblock for that theme. And then, that's going to enhance the experience of that activity. So I actually talked through someone, I won't put her on the spot, but I talked through somebody's alignment meter worksheet this week. And what I was really seeing, she had submitted to me earlier, is that she was doing the same activities, but the number was changing based on, some things, but same activity. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, it's not the activity, but something is getting in there and just really going, there's one time she was thriving and then others she was suffering, and then sort of everything in between. Well, we really isolated it. We dug a little deeper. It wasn't the activity she needed to change, but it was more about interruption. And she has intellection, as do I, and I know that's a big one for me. The interruption was a big piece of what was sort of tanking some of those periods of her day. And sometimes she can control that, sometimes she can't. But I think having those kinds of awarenesses, but all of her other themes were engaged. Restorative was solving problems for people. So I could keep going on, but I want to turn it back over to you guys. Does that help shed some light on that one?
Yes.
I'll share something that I have really kind of focused on this week, or really identified, and I already knew it, it's just very evident, is that my activator is never off. And if it's off, I'm not happy. So on the things that were, even like I put down, getting ready for work, because I had calls. And so there's a time period in there where I have to eat breakfast and I have to get my face on and get my hair did, And at the same time, I'm also listening to training. I'm returning my Voxes, or I'm actually I'm doing Marco Polo. I'm doing everything I can to keep myself moving, and to also keep myself communicating and engaged. Like for me, just to do one thing, like I also had to do some research on an ebook and talk about the energy suck, because it required that I focus on this screen and read the thing to figure it out. And
where's your learner?
Learner's like 18.
But do you see, to a learner, it would be a different reaction.
Absolutely. Well, I have input, so that's a learning talent, but it's not in my area of expertise. Well, so that's why it didn't give me any energy. Well,
that, and plus it's just such a great way to juxtapose those two themes, input and learner, because input's not going to do you any good. You would think input's the one that would devour stuff. Input's like, I'm only going to do it if it's useful. And I don't know if it's useful yet. Well, how are you going to know if it's useful if you don't learn? And learner's like, I don't care if it's useful. I care if it's new and interesting.
Yes.
And I'll digest it.
And input cares whether it's in alignment with the other things that I'm passionately studying. And learning about that ebook, it wasn't.
Right.
So
couldn't just go take action on it right then. That was another drag to it.
Yeah. So, there was really only one time this week where I know for sure all of my talents were engaged, like all of them in the activity. And it's when I had them get the most energy, and that's in my show on Wednesdays. Like everything is there.
You, very clearly, for anybody that hasn't seen Rhonda's show, you will see a person in their environment. You will see what a human would look like if they enjoyed playing in slop You know, because I told Rhonda this. I said I was watching her show. I wasn't listening. I just was watching. I had the mute on, and I was just watching for the first minute or so as it came up on the Facebook feed. And I'm like, this is somebody who loves what they do. It's absolutely evident without any words or anything. It's pretty cool to see. And so, yeah, you should be doing that as much as you can. And this is what we're about. This is what we're trying to encourage people to do. And this is what it looks like to live a strengths-based life. It looks like it would be great if we could live our lives by living our themes all day long.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're doing instead is we're performing activities all day long. And some of those activities fit well with our themes, and some of those activities mismatch with our themes. And so what we need to do is be able to recognize that so that we could increase the number of activities or the amount of our life we spend in the activities that engage our themes, our best aspects, and we succeed and we feel like we're at choice, we have autonomy, we feel like we're competent and growing in those things we care about, and we feel like we're taking care of those people who matter to us. The intrinsic motivation pyramid of autonomy, competence, relatedness. And so Don Clifton, when he created the Strengths Finder, this is so key. He said, you already have strengths. You just can't see them. But one thing he knew about strengths was that they engage our talents. We could do something. We could be good at something because we have the knowledge and skill to do it. We may not enjoy it. Other people may go, you're so good at it. You should be spending your whole life. But I know I don't enjoy it just because I'm good at it. Don Clifton said, in order for something to truly be a strength, there has to be that third element, not just skills, not just knowledge, but also talent, applying your native talents. So he wanted to help you identify your talents, because when you see your talents coalescing like Rhonda's describing, now we know Rhonda has a strength for hosting public media things. That's the strength. Her activator is not the strength. It's a talent. The strength is what she does when she's on a show and she has people and she has a microphone, you know, and then things just happen. And so you get to see somebody in their strength. And then all of us have it. And Don Clifton was like, yeah, we all have it, but it's invisible. And we need to be better at spotting strengths. Oh yeah.
I have an example of somebody that I worked with this week who she questioned, well, she was actually on my show yesterday. So if you see her, you'll understand what I'm talking about if you watch that. But anyway, her name is Nina, and she has Learner High, and she has not one, but 2 podcasts, and her podcasts are on technology. Like, she helps you get up and run your own podcast and do your, like she calls herself the technical interventionist or something like that. Because she helps people. I don't think interventionist is the right word, but she helps people figure out the technology piece, right? And when she pulled her full profile, communication is number 34 or 24. She said, I don't understand why I have so low in communication. And I said, well, let's look at it. Because, you're doing a great job sharing the information that you have when you go on live on your podcast. And then when you're done, you need to go take a nap. Because the communication aspect of what you're doing is actually draining your energy. And the reason that you want to have that podcast and you want to be able to share is because your learner needs an output. Your learner needs an input. She has both of them. They need to learn, and then share what you know. And so that's where you get the energy. But as soon as you're finished, you're like done. Where let me tell you, when I'm done with the show, like it's like I'm on drugs or something, because I'm so full of energy. Like I could talk on the phone for hours on Wednesdays because I'm energized from that. Nikki says that her input needs output too. Yes, Your input does need an output. And
Yeah.
that becomes like teaching, which is what this lady does really well. She teaches for very brief moments, but then she has to go recharge her batteries by learning something or studying something or reading or being alone, you know,
Yeah.
on lockdown for a little
Oh,
bit.
wow. That's
Well,
interesting.
Let me check in real quick with everybody on the point about the difference between the themes and the strengths, because that is what we think that's one of the absolute essential things to be an effective strengths interventionist, strengths coach, strengths trainer, or even just using it for yourself. So I want to see what your reaction was to those ideas of the difference between a strength as an activity and then the themes.
Can I ask one question related to that, Adam?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, regarding, because I remember sort of looking at the Soar with Your Strengths book, the Don Clifton thing, the original one,
Yeah.
that talked about focusing on one area to develop a strength. Like very much identify the thing, the big thing you want to be good at, and focus your talents around that.
Yes.
Whereas when you talk about it, you're kind of talking about applying the talents to many activities.
Yeah.
Did you say something about that?
Yeah. So I think Don Clifton was saying that too, about basically, well, his definition of a strength is consistent and near perfect performance in a specific activity. Yeah. And then he'll say many times, part of that strength is applying your talents, but that alone is not enough. So it's talent, knowledge, and skill. Talent being those unique qualities you have. They're irreplicable. They're unlearnable. Think about that. Don Clifton would say your talents aren't really learnable. You have them. If there's other themes, if there's a theme of talent you want, you're not going to be able to just go and get it and make it your own. So that's interesting. It's something you uniquely bring to the activity. And thank goodness for that too. Otherwise, this would be a real boring place where everybody does every activity the same way. I love seeing the competition of how people are applying it, their abilities differently. It's a wonderful thing to see. It's a uniquely human thing. And we do it all the time, but we just take it for granted. But then also to the one big thing, your strength, and this is what Don Clifton advocated, try to build your life around a strength. So make a strength a big thing. It may not be your strengths may not be a big thing in your life. So, but he would say, make it a big thing in your life. Make it a bigger thing. And take your weaknesses and make it a smaller thing. Well, that's like revolutionary at the time he said it, but it's also like, yeah, no duh, right? Like it's so obvious, but apparently another uniquely human quality is to go for 25,000 years like dum-dums.
So I also would say too, to that point, Jim, is that, even if the strength is, so like, let's take Rhonda's example, her show, she can clearly identify that, now I think Rhonda has a lot of awareness and training and, self-awareness and knowledge. She already knew that made her happy, but let's say as she did this worksheet, she started to uncover just how happy it made her, and how, that particular activity compared to other activities in her life was just like outshining everything, right? Well, she can then shape her day-to-day to fit that bigger activity, which I would even suggest might be even further than that. But when she puts on a show, there are a lot of smaller activities that go in to getting her there, to sort of making up that activity of putting on a podcast, that's her area of strength. So she would even want to look at the things that go into that and even identify those sort of like supporting activities. And if everything is like skyrocketing her into thriving, great. But if she starts to identify that what she actually loves is her show, being in front of people, but the technical piece And you can even break that into smaller things. The activity of setting up the technical piece is a real drag. I think she's got a good system for it, but I'm just talking in the abstract. She might say, hey, that's something I could either spend some time sort of like removing some pain points, or just hire it out so that she could spend more time either making a second show or building this show. And so that's where it's like, you can start to say that, you know, if you're not aware of it in the first place because it's so close to you, first you need to identify and kind of shift your life tasks toward that place. But then you're also looking at like what else is going into it too, or even what might be kind of adjacent. Like, I mean, you see Adam, one of his strengths is clarifying content and delivering it, and you see how excited he gets. But so many activities go into that. So I'll turn it back over.
That was nice. That was really good. I'm gonna listen to that again because I have it recorded. So yeah, let's get back into this. Felinda, you know how I am, always sticking on the schedule, always a stickler for following the plan.
Well, I just think that this is something I'd like you to carry the image of this meter in your head. You know, if you physically do the activity, again, great, but I think you can constantly be evaluating your activities, and I'd like you to really try to look at your day-to-day. And Rhonda, what you said, you were even doing it for your, you know, sort of daily routine stuff. Do it for that. Do it for your personal life. Do it for your professional life, because you will start to see you have a lot more control over shifting that needle if you apply your talents, and a lot more control of removing things that are getting in your way. But we live, you know, we live so close to it that we need some exercises like this to help us see it a little more clearly, or bubble those awarenesses up to the surface so that we can really grab hold and do something with them. So I am going to move us on a little bit because I want to talk about how you'd facilitate this with clients. But I will say before we do that, this is so important that you do it yourself, you live it yourself, because it's just, you'll see what I mean as you begin to make shifts. You'll be able to really help your clients kind of think in the context of this, and it will go from something that's very static on a page to something that's very experiential and important to your life. At least it has been for me. I want that for you.
I want to do a pop quiz. Do you think most interventions begin with alignment or begin with contrast? Like, let's say you're a coach and you have a client coming to you. Will that client come to you with alignment or contrast?
It could be both.
Mm-hmm. It could be.
More likely, though, they're coming to you with a challenge.
Yeah, most coaching begins with contrast of some sort. And the key point here is we can always improve. We may not ever go from 0 to 100, but we could go from 0 to 25. And you know that feeling? It's like you're suffering and suffering. Well, that's terrible. And what's better is when you're struggling, and that's not fun either. But what's really fun is when you struggle and you start to get traction and you feel it and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I haven't hit a home run yet, but I found traction. That's a good feeling. And then when you're thriving, it's like you need to relish in it. You need to recognize it and relish it.
Right.
And there's two strategies to go from 0 to 100 or toward 100. And one is hope. I hope things will work themselves out. I hope my boss will stop being a jerk. You know? Or finding the right activity and performing that activity at the right level is how you create alignment. And it's how you help other people create alignment. So hope is not a strategy.
Hope it's not a strategy.
Good.
So I want to go to the next slide after this. So let's talk about how you would use this, you know, in a more practical facilitation. So you have obviously a couple options, a workshop setting, a one-on-one. When you have the workshop, It's obviously, sometimes you can hand something out and tell somebody to do this ahead of time. And if that works, I would highly recommend it, because it really gives the participant something to kind of, they don't quite know what they're doing or why necessarily, but with a little explanation, they can get far enough along. And if they bring that to the day, they're already plugged in. So I've worked with that a few times. It's kind of an ideal scenario. It doesn't usually happen with training. So sometimes they're going to be seeing that for the first time in a training. If you have a short time with them, have them pick 1 or 2 activities from their day, and you can just facilitate them working through it in a table discussion. But as you all know, that Adam and I believe incremental learning works much better. So we do like to have a client work on this and then bring it to a session. And then we kind of begin to work through it. And I refer back to this with people even years later. We talk about, some of the key concepts that come out of this. So I just want to take a minute too, because this quote is something that I think we all experience as trainers. And I said last time that Adam and I are moving toward a more experiential learning model, more incremental learning. And this is why. And this is something I want you to be kind of thinking about too. And I'll just read it. Just because work is hands-on does not mean it is minds-on. So many projects, problems, situations, and field trips do not yield lasting and transferable learning because too little attention is given to the metacognitive and idea-building work that turns a single experience into insight and later application. This is Grant Wiggins. He's an author and former president of Authentic Education. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he has a really nice body of work. And what I would just say there is, like, you could do this worksheet and get nothing from it. Or you could actually start to shape your life, even in these tiny mundane things, to really make the space for you to do more of what you do well, and to really recognize that. So that's what we want from these worksheets. I hate busy work so much. And so I will not, the reason that we have this stuff, I have eliminated anything I think is busy work. As Adam will tell you, I'm fairly ruthless about it.
Yeah, she almost got rid of me.
That is not true.
You're just busy work. That's all you are.
No, but it's only useful if you engage in it. So, and if you help your client engage in it and see that value. So that is what we want for you. Questions, instructions beforehand, examples, all the things you know how to do well already. But do you have any questions about how you would facilitate this particular activity?
I think it'd be a good idea to go and practice it on your family and your friends, just to get the practical experience out of it.
That's great, yes. And I would say here, let's say you want to practice it on somebody who's not taken the Clifton Strengths. What do you do? Right. So you can do it. You have them do the activity, go through it, and they're not going to know maybe talents exactly or themes, like that might be the confusing piece. And you would just talk to them about, say, why do you think that, this was, just traction for you? Like, what was that? And, you can give them general language around talents, but they can begin to sort of just identify why those activities are where they are. And later, if you do continue the relationship, or they do plug into the Clifton Strengths, you can kind of go back to this. But you can get a lot of this even without, using an assessment tied to it. So that's where I want you to really see that it's not dependent on any assessment, and you can use it with anyone, should you so choose. All right, any more questions on this one? On how to facilitate, questions around like the logic of it?
Okay, so do we move further into, once you start identifying this, how you get a person to move those suffer and struggle activities over into their alignment, like doing like finding the things that they like to do or the places and like moving their activities over more into that side?
Yes, great question. Yes, and so this is kind of that first step of almost like connecting and becoming aware of, you know, why their talents are called what they're called and how they kind of connect to that person's life. And then as you begin to go into, you know, observing them, especially if you have a long-term relationship with a client or, you know, group of people, you can say, like, let's say you get all the way to the interrupt phase of the coin model and they're like, my rut is, you know, really showing up like this. You can refer back and say, kind of break it down, like, okay, let's take a look at why, you know, and pull out the meter and say that rut of that particular talent is showing up for you this way. And this is why it's kind of putting you on the meter here or there. And let's look at a really practical way we could adjust that to improve. And so that is where the fun part, I think, of the coaching conversation really comes into play. It's like you both have this nice shared language, and then you work together, you know, to help them with the solution, and then they hopefully will do their part of the work to also look for the solution and then apply it. And that is a lot of how I use, you know, kind of term my language in my coaching conversations, is we kind of come back to this. If they bring me a new issue that they're working on, or they're working on shifting something in their life, you know, maybe it's a role that they have that they are just, it's not quite right, but they've made some progress, but there's just still, you know, we come back to this and we say, all right, let's look at, you know, this. And you have to remind people a lot. I worked with someone with adaptability, somebody else who adaptability, she was making a lot of like 10-year plans, really elaborate ones. And I was
Are you talking about me right now and you're trying to make it sound like you're talking about somebody else?
Someone else, really, truly.
She.
Yeah, she. If I were that clever about able to change it. And
oh, you're pretty clever. I'm not putting anything past. Don't act like, oh, if I wasn't so simple and direct and no. Like, quit waving your hands like this when you talk. It's weird. It's distracting.
So, you know, she was making these 10-year plans. Then we kind of talked about how that just wasn't gonna help. That was just like, and she was suffering. She was thinking she couldn't do anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you do so much, and here's how, and here's why, right? And then, you know, she got away from that. We were really shaping it. And then one day she came back to a session with a 6-month plan. You know, and I was like, well, we're looking at, you know,
you have adaptability. Just what are you going to do this hour? You know,
yeah, like your long-term goals isn't going to change, but your reaction in the moment is never going to enjoy the pressure of, you know, this future plan. So, you know, we remove that, and it allows her to thrive in the situation again. But it's like whenever she puts that back on because she feels like she should, it takes, you know, the enjoyment out of it for her. So we started seeing that. Well, that's something we learned early on, but it's something we come back to. That was a long answer to your question, but yes, we do try.
Interesting.
You know, what I love about this work is that there's, you know, speaking of adaptability, I have talked to so many people who are high in adaptability whose coaches have caused them to suffer greatly by trying to force them into things like time blocks. And again, this long-term planning. And I did a long-term planning exercise several years ago, and I got home and I buried it. You know, it got pushed to the back of the closet. And I ran into it 5 years later. And of that entire exercise, that whole day's training of planning out my 10-year vision, one thing on that list got finished. You know, because that's what I was interested in right then. But, you know, a week later,
Okay.
that wasn't what I wanted.
Well, I think you'll see that you're so right, Rhonda. It's like you'll see that a lot in adaptability. People will feel like, oh, I didn't get this done. Well, you trigger adaptability properly, they are powerhouses. For getting
Mhm.
It's really good. We got to move on though. Sorry to be the timekeeper. Go on.
Thank you, Adam. That's great. Let's
I
move
know.
actually to slide 39. Those other slides were more just if we
We're gonna
needed.
just go. We're gonna skip all this juicy stuff and go this slide.
You've already seen it. Those are the slides from the pre-session. That was just in case we needed to reference material. So going to slide 39, please.
That's like the second to last one. Go on. Go on.
Well, that actually brings us to the Connect with Accountability Partner. If you are not inclined to do this material on your own, or if that somehow feels like a bit of a drag, get an accountability partner. I guarantee you probably have a set of themes that needs activated by someone and energized by participating with someone.
Yes.
And that's a way to turn an activity from suffering to thriving.
Yes.
Make this more enjoyable. So highly recommend that. We want this to be fun for you. We want you to have a lot of personal takeaways as well as being able to work with people. So I would say that's a clue, you know, look at your themes. Like if you're suffering, are you alone too much and you need someone to help kind of like energize you through it? I bet it will change the perspective. So highly recommend that. Your homework for next session, and this class is going to go fast. We're already 2 in. We want you to watch the pre-session video for session 3. It's on treasure, time, and talent resources and how to apply them effectively. And theme anatomy, one of the core models you can use with yourself and clients. If you don't meet your needs, they don't go away. And then our perspective on the 4 domains demands. This is where we're going to find the colors don't mean much and how we interpret it to hopefully make it meaningful and take it a little bit past like the utility of just a simple learning tool. And then your activity for next week, aside from watching the video, is to complete the 4 domains worksheet. Adam does explain it in the pre-session video, and I believe even covers an example, but that's on the next slide.
Well,
So
I want to, I'll pull that up here, but I actually found a really nice one that I forgot we had. Let me see. Yeah, right here. This is from a high school sophomore. She has input number 1. So for her, R and I go together because once I relate, I can influence.
Adam, do you have the sample to pull up?
It's not. Can you not see it?
No, the blank one is showing right now.
Oh yeah. All right. Hold on. We'll fix that.
I saw the other one.
This one.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So, how does her input theme help her influence? The theme input allows me to relate to others and then they're open to listen. I don't know. She might not be understanding that one.
I think so.
Okay.
Well, just that she relates to others by sharing with them. So she kind of relates to what's important to them. And
well, yeah. Oh yeah. Like here, she'll help them succeed using her achiever. And I've seen her do that. And yeah, when she gets things done, it inspires others. She's the no procrastinator type person. Look at whatever kind of freak of nature that is. She thinks about what's on her to-do list and then gets it done and then execute, and it's already an executing theme. Yeah, she's context, a rare theme to have. She relates her past failures and victories to current ones. She helps others understand the problem at hand by relating it to the past. Anyway, so I just wanted to share that example.
Yeah, I think that this one is so people get hung up on the domains and it can be sad almost because it's just like they're undervaluing their abilities, thinking that it's, putting them in a box. And I just don't believe that should be for anyone. And so we've developed this to hopefully break out of that. Adam has a really nice way of languaging how the domains can really more represent the kinds of demands life places on us. You'll see a lot more in depth in the video. But this will just help you look at how, like, okay, how do I use my input to build relationships? How do I use my strategic to do that or to execute? I mean, I definitely do that, and I value it, and I love doing that. So if I had just stopped at the very beginning after reading my report and learning about the domains and just thought, oh, whoops, you know, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, that would have been not a good thing, right? I don't want that for anyone. So we hope that you will enjoy that activity for that reason, and just kind of help you look at how you do that, because that is crucial. So any questions about that? Or I know you haven't seen the video yet, but just didn't want to turn you loose.
I just wanted to add to say that I think this is going to be very, very helpful for me, because I was pretty hung up with the majority of my themes being in the thinking category.
Yeah.
So this will really give me that spectrum to say, yes, it's technically or theoretically a thinking one, but this is how you use it in the other areas. So that'll help me to relax.
I think you'll enjoy that, because you'll see also how theme anatomy really pairs there. It's like you have a need. Themes can be activated, but they need things to do that. They need conditions and, you know, awarenesses. And once you know those, yeah, it's like you do execute. I know you do. And so it's to be kind of aware of what are the things you need that gets you into execution mode. And I know I need a set of things, and I know I've already worked with some of you a little bit, so I know. So.
Can I just add one thing? I think this is even more important, and it is very, very useful, having been through it once at least. Because with the way Gallup are going at the moment, with their new 34, you know, there's so much more information that they're putting onto the website as standard. That they're focusing on the domains, which are going to be making the clients really think that they, you know, thinking about 4 domains rather than 34 talents. So I think it's even more important. Yes.
Absolutely critical. Absolutely. People will turn it into a 4-domain model if they could. And then it's no different than DISC or any 4 colors or any of these other things. And you lose all of that real beauty of diversity. I'm trying to find a slide here. Let me see if I can find it, if I put it on here. Yeah, it's not in here. It's where I have the 4 domains next to the circumplex. I could try to find it while we're chatting. But go on. Nice, more comments or feedback on any of this stuff we talked about.
That's great, Jim. Thank you. I agree. And we do, by the way, like other assessments and those other assessments, but we just think, you know, this one has such potential to really help support someone and kind of, you know, provide these context clues, really. And you know, yes, I enjoy, you know, with intellection as my number 1, I enjoy thinking about stuff. That is absolutely true. But I do other things with it too. You know. Any other comments, questions? Well, we're going to stick around a little bit if you want to have kind of non-official questions. And I want to respect people's time, and we're at that hour mark. So we're going to let you go if you need to go or want to go. But you know, reach out to us if you do have any questions throughout the week. And
let me share this real quick, Felina. Sorry, I know you're doing the big wrap up, but so I mean, this is what the 4 domains model looks like: relating, influencing, thinking, executing, or some people call it strategic thinking. I don't call it strategic thinking because strategic is a theme already, and so it's a little confusing to call it strategic thinking. And you're going to see in this video why we have, you know, we're going to have a nuanced discussion about these 4 domains. You may not like what we say about it, but you're free to accept, reject, or adapt it. We're just giving you our opinion. But just look at when you actually show the themes, how it has way more diversity than just influence. It's, wow, activator is completely different than command. Activator is going to do stuff And it's not even like they're trying to influence. They're just trying to keep themselves from being bored or going crazy or whatever. They're not trying to influence. It's just that other people might get caught up in their wake, because when an activator gets moving, you got to move. Command just sits there and tells people, you know, I mean, that's a little simple, but like they're going to say it. They're going to express it more so than just do it, you know? And communication is going to communicate way differently than command communicates. Command is going to be like, I want clarity. This is what I want. What do you want? Quit doinking around and just tell me. And communication is going to say, I want to make this alive and vibrant in your brain and make you excited about it. You know, totally different ways of influencing. Maximizer is just going to be like, if you're not the best, you suck and get out of my way. That's a little strong, but you know, like very different. And so what I like about this is we color separate relating into 9 different themes. You know, we take these thinking and it's like, whoa, here's 8 different things. And it's way more, you know, individualized. Yeah, Rhonda says her maximizer mirrors what I was saying. But anyway, so I just wanted to share this with you. You're going to see more about this in the pre-session video this coming week. We're going to talk more about it. I just wanted to give you a little primer. And I just wanted to say primer because it sounds fancy. So have a primer on me, on us. So yeah, as Felinda said, we'll stick around. You guys are free to go. Thanks for hanging out with us. We love talking about it. So if nothing else, thanks for giving us an excuse to do that. But yeah, we'll stick around for anybody that has any questions. We'll stick around for, we'll just say 10 minutes max. And then.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate you being here tonight. Have a good week.
I have another question.
Sure. We're on overtime, so everybody's free to go. Nikki, what's your question?
So do we, in this course, do we go more deeply into the 34 themes, or is this more just about the framework and methodology?
Felinda, go ahead.
Yeah, we definitely do go more in depth. We put it later because we, you know, a lot of people do already have, you know, kind of a little bit of the knowledge coming in. But we wanted you to experience the core models, kind of like your framework around sort of, you know, if you're going to give a training and if you're going to work with someone long term, where does the assessment, where does the talent fit? And, you know, we used to kind of lead a little bit more with kind of explaining that, but we wanted to structure it kind of where it's supposed to live. So that as you do have a long-term experience or working with these models yourself, you know, you'll know kind of, okay, here's the core models and core content, and here's where the talents plug in.
I noticed that all of the leaders are in that orange-yellow category, and that's the part to me that is kind of draining, because you talked about that that inspiring that we talked about earlier, you know, free choice. I can't put the exact words, but I feel like that's what I'm not getting. And there's all of this activator, there's this command, and like the maximizer, if you're not crushing your goals and you're not doing this and going out and getting it, and that's not it's supposed to be motivating me, but it's not inspiring me. And so it
demotivates you.
It's starting to make me more resentful, because I feel like they don't understand all of this purple, red, and blue. They don't understand that. They think if you're not if you're not doing this, then you're doing something wrong. And I'm looking forward to being able to explain more of this in a way, like you use the word diversity, and teaching, you know, that diversity is more than just culture and things like that. It is actually, because they're thriving off, they're really immersed in the DISC assessment, and so they're just using those 4. They relate them to animals, like lion for the D and flamingo for the I, and turtle and chameleon. And so because I'm high turtle, I'm high S and C, it's just this feeling like, if you're not a lion, you're not a part of this jungle, you know, like.
Yes.
And that's because the leader of the organization is more dominant commanding. And so everybody that kind of fits his mold is who ends up in leadership. And it makes me feel like there's no place for me here.
I would like to say something on that. You would probably really like, I think, our approach to leadership. We view leadership as an activity. We don't view leadership as a title, role, or position, or as a personality trait. We think it's an activity. And just like any activity, let's see if I have this here. I'm just looking for our ladder. Oh yeah, here. Yeah, any activity could be performed at any one of these levels. And what I like is when you bring your unique talents, Nikki, to the activity of leadership, it's going to look different. It's going to look more like the kind of leadership I personally would like. Thought leadership, a sense of the bigger picture, innovation, utility, and safety. And I think that's, you could bring this exact set of 5 themes to leadership, the activity of leadership, and do it your way. And any set of 5 themes could be applied to any activity. And I believe that's a fact.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. So lead like you, you know?
Well,
I like that. Lead like you.
Yes, definitely. And I think that one of the things I like so much about this is the way that it creates a shared language among people, because, you know, without it, and you could use other things too, but without this kind of shared language, you know, that person with the influencing style, that's what works for them. And so they think it's going to work for everybody else. And, you know, this provides the context of language around like, no, this is how I do it. And you can begin to share that. They begin to understand that and see it. And then you both have, you know, that increased understanding, but then you're really able, once they see that and begin to work with it, to take more of that potential of leadership, because they're not, oh, that doesn't look like leadership to me. Well, now they've expanded their definition of leadership and they understand. And, you know, leadership that doesn't look like theirs is actually going to be complementary and supportive in an organization. So I love this for how teams begin to language that and understand each other. How, you know, directors in organizations begin to understand their employees a little better. It was interesting. We had one client, the CEO, was sitting at a table, and, you know, privately on the site, later, he's like, there were 3 people at that table I have a really hard time with. And it was really interesting to sit with them today and to really understand them a lot better, because, you know, they had like, what would be, if themes were opposites, those 3 people had pretty much the opposite of him, you know? So it was really nice to see that. He's going to understand them better. They're going to understand, you know, vice versa. So I love it for that reason. Many reasons, as you can see.
Good. Thank you. Other questions or comments, reactions?
Well, I just was going to say, what a shame that in a leadership program, they're only teaching you one way of leadership. Because as you just said, there's so many ways to lead, and you lead according to how you're gifted. And yeah. I think that the issue is they're not aware, but guess who else is not aware?
Who?
You.
Who? Oh.
Nikki. Yeah, I happen to know that she does execute immediately when she gets the all clear sign.
Good.
Right? So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Good. Other thoughts, questions?
That's actually something for all our deliberatives, of course. Risk, that's a need. It needs to be addressed and met before action can be taken. You'll see that on the theme anatomy.
Cool. Well, we'll round it out here. Get in touch with us if you have any questions. Feel free to make any comments on the videos when you watch it so that we can have some discussion underneath the videos. yeah, and if you're needing anything from us, let us know. We want to make sure you're enjoying this and getting value. And yeah, so we can leave it there, and we'll pick it up. Next week?
Week.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Bye-bye.